We are now on the record. Participants should be aware that this proceeding is being recorded, and as such, all conversations held will be recorded unless there was a request and agreement to go off the record. Private conversations and/or attorney-client interactions should be held outside the presence of the remote interface. For the purpose of creating a witness-only video recording, the witness is being spotlighted or locked on all video screens while in speaker view. We ask that the witness not remove the spotlight setting during the deposition, as it may cause other participants to appear on the final video rather than just the witness. For anyone who doesn't want the witness's video to take up the large part of your screen, you may click the Gallery View button in the upper right corner of the remote depo interface. This is a remote video recorded deposition of Joshua Williams. Today is Friday, September 18th, 2020. The time is now 1:08 p.m. Central. We are here in the matter of Sterling Green Community Improvement versus Dorothy MALVEAUX versus Thomas Olson. My name is Pam Longoria, remote video technician on behalf of U.S. Legal Support, located at 16825 North Chase Drive, Suite 800, Houston, Texas 77060. I am not related to any party in this action, nor am I financially interested in the outcome. At this time, will the reporter Kathleen Tyler, on behalf of U.S. Legal Support, please enter the statement for remote proceedings into the record.
The attorneys participating in this deposition acknowledge that I am not physically present in the deposition room and that I will be reporting this deposition remotely. They further acknowledge that in lieu of an oath administered in person, I will administer the oath remotely. This arrangement is pursuant to the Texas Supreme Court First Emergency Order regarding the COVID-19 state of disaster. The parties and their counsel consent to this arrangement and waive any objections to this manner of reporting. Please indicate your agreement by stating your name and your agreement on the record.
Peter Zavodnik, I am in agreement.
Bill Chesney, Chesney, I'm in agreement.
Joshua Williams, I'm in agreement.
Will the witness kindly present his government-issued identification by holding it up to the camera for verification? Got it, thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and swear you in. So would you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, help you God?
Yes.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Joshua Williams.
Let the record reflect this is the deposition of Joshua Williams taken in the matter of Sterling Green versus Thomas Olson. Mr. Williams, my name is Peter Zavodnik. I am one of the attorneys for the defendant, Thomas Olson. I'm going to be asking you a series of questions today regarding a report you prepared for Sterling Green Community Improvement Association. Can I ask, or to begin with, it's important that you let me finish asking the question before you answer it so that the court reporter can take down both of our statements. And it's hard for her to do that if we're speaking at the same time. Is that okay?
Okay.
It's also important that you answer all questions verbally rather than using your hands or nodding your head, because it's hard for the court reporter to type down your thoughts unless you enunciate them. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, use words instead of gestures.
Okay.
And then finally, if at any time you need to take a break, please let me know and we'll be happy to accommodate you. I would just ask that if there is a question pending, that you answer the question before taking the break.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me your full name, please?
Joshua Arley Williams.
Senior?
Excuse me?
Senior?
Yes.
And how do you spell Arleigh?
A-R-L-E-I-G-H.
And can I ask where you are right now? Are you at an office, at home?
I'm at home.
Okay. And what is your And are you alone in the room?
I am.
Have you ever testified in a deposition before?
No.
Have you ever served as an expert witness in a civil case?
No.
What is your, are you employed at present?
I couldn't say it one more time.
Are you employed at present?
Yes.
And what's the name of your employer?
Shedrick McGill, CPA.
What's your current job title?
Senior staff accountant.
How long have you been a senior staff accountant with Shedrick McGill, or Shedrick McGill CPA?
Going on 14 years now.
Since 2006?
Correct.
And what are your current job duties?
Currently, I do bookkeeping, bank reconciliations, payroll, and I assist on different projects such as audits and different things like that. It's kind of variable, and I also prepare tax returns as well. I kind of do whatever is needed of me at the office.
And were those also your job duties in 2019?
Correct.
Who is your supervisor at present?
I'd be Shedrick McGill.
Is Mr. McGill the sole owner of Shedrick McGill CPA?
That's correct.
Are there any partners other than Mr. McGill?
No.
Has that always been the case since you've worked there?
That's correct.
Does that entity employ any certified public accountants?
No. I mean, only himself.
Are you a certified public accountant?
No.
Have you ever been a certified public accountant?
No.
Do you have any licenses or certifications?
I have my master's in accounting.
Have you ever had any licenses or certifications?
No, just a 4-year degree in accounting and then my master's in accounting.
You prepared an independent audit report concerning Sterling Green Community Improvement Association at the request of Sterling Green, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did any, in 2019, did Shedrick McGill CPA employ any persons who were certified public accountants other than, of course, Mr. McGill?
No.
Did any CPA participate in the preparation of the report, the independent audit report you prepared for Sterling Green?
No.
Did you prepare that report in the course of and as part of your employment with Shedrick McGill CPA, or did you do that on your own?
It was done independently. Because I have my I have my own business as well.
So in connection with that independent audit report, did you perform an audit of Sterling Green?
Yes.
And what did you charge for the performance of the audit and the preparation of the audit report for Sterling Green?
It was $650 per month, which came out to $7,800.
When did you begin preparing the audit, and when did your work in connection with the audit conclude?
I began preparing it in, I want to say, April of 2019, and it concluded in June of 2019.
When you say you charge $650 a month, what do you mean by that?
Meaning that there were no financial records to review, so I had to look at it at a month-by-month basis, and that's just kind of how I do my billing, by month, not by year, I guess you would say.
And what months did you look at?
It would be January through December of 2018.
Do you have a file for the audit you performed for Sterling Green?
Yes.
Is it a physical file, like in a banker's box, or an electronic file?
It's a physical file, and I have it electronically as well. I think I shared pretty much everything with you guys already as far as electronically.
In other words, over the last couple days, you sent to me via email what you believe are the entirety of the stored materials, of the materials that are contained in your file for the Sterling Green audit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, is it possible that there may be additional materials, such as we saw this morning with some of the emails that had attachments that were not yet produced? Is it possible that there might be more of those?
No.
And what does your file for the Sterling Green audit contain?
It contains bank statements, notes, canceled checks, and payroll records.
Did you search your emails for emails you sent to either Sterling Green or its attorneys?
Yes.
Did you find emails you exchanged with both Sterling Green and its attorneys?
Say it one more time.
Did you find emails you exchanged with both Sterling Green and its attorneys?
Yes.
And those concerned the independent audit report?
Yes.
And you provided those to me, is that correct?
That's correct.
If you had to perform additional searches, I take it you have access to the email system you used in 2019, correct?
Yes.
Is Sterling Green Community Improvement Association a homeowners association?
It is.
Have you ever participated in the management? I'm going to use the acronym HOA. When I do that, can we agree that I'm referring to homeowners associations?
Yes, that's fine.
And can we agree that Sterling Green Community Improvement Association is an HOA?
Yes.
Okay, have you ever participated in the management of an HOA?
No.
Have you ever been an officer or director of an HOA?
No.
Prior to the report you prepared for Sterling Green, had you ever performed an audit of an HOA?
Of a HOA, no.
Since you prepared your report of your audit of Sterling Green, have you ever audited any other HOAs?
No.
What training do you have in the performance of audits?
Like I said, I've worked with the CPA for the last 14 years, and I've assisted on multiple audits that we have done at our CPA firm. But it has never been for a HOA.
Have you ever performed an audit yourself with Shedrick McGill?
No.
Does the state of Texas allow anyone to perform an audit, or are there certain requirements of people who perform audits?
To my knowledge, I thought that if you have an accounting degree and you work for a CPA office and you had experience, that you're qualified to do an audit, an internal audit.
What is an internal audit?
Internal audit is basically when you come into a situation where an outside entity such as Sterling Green asks you to come in and review their financial information and make a determination on how their internal controls are being ran.
Are there types of other than internal audits?
Excuse me?
Are there types of audits other than internal audits?
Absolutely.
What other types of audits are there?
They're external audits. I don't want to say criminal audits, but there's external audits, internal audits. I really can't think of them all. You kind of got me on the spot right now. I really can't think of them all at this moment.
Okay, what's the difference between an external audit and an internal audit?
An external audit is when someone outside of the business requests that an audit be done.
And it's your belief that the audit you performed for Sterling Green was an internal audit?
Yes.
And just so I understand correctly, in your view, an external audit is when someone outside of the organization requests the audit of the organization?
Correct.
Okay. The audit report you prepared for Sterling Green is dated June 26, 2019. Is that correct?
Yes.
When did you actually prepare the independent audit report? May of 19, June, July?
The report was actually done in May. It was not done, but it was being worked on in May, but it was finalized in June.
When you completed the report, how did you send it to Sterling Green?
I sent it to him via email.
Did you, in the emails you provided to me, was that one of them?
Yes, it should have been, yes.
I believe I forwarded the 19-page PDF that contains the emails you exchanged with Sterling Green and its attorneys to the court reporter. Does the court reporter have that? Or, I'm not sure who, we sent it to US Legal. I'm not sure who's handling the exhibits.
I do have some exhibits. What did you say it was?
It's a 19-page PDF.
No, I do not have that one. I have a 315-page PDF, a 4-page PDF, and the notice of deposition.
Mr. Williams, do you have access to the PDF?
Yes, I do.
Can you look at that PDF and tell me where I can find the email is that contains the email from you to Sterling Green that contains the report?
Sure. I'm looking through them now.
Take your time.
Okay, I'm looking at it now.
Okay, on what page of the PDF is it?
5.
Okay, now on this email is dated June 24 of 20.
Yes, sir. And that is due to me believing that I had sent the email to them prior to that. But I guess that I did not.
Well, I will represent to you that we received the report from the plaintiff's attorneys in January of 2020.
Okay.
And so that tells me that you provided the report to Sterling Green before June 24, 2020.
That's correct.
So do you have the email? Is the email in which you transferred the report to Sterling Green for the first time, the completed report, is that in this 19-page PDF?
I know that was the report that you see in the PDF. That was the only full report that I sent to Sterling Green. I had previously sent the auditor's report to their attorney, and I included that in the emails. But I had thought at the time that I had sent the report to Sterling Green via email, but I had not. And then a lot of time passed, and it really just slipped my mind until they brought it back up. And I thought, okay, well, let me send this to you guys.
So at some point you sent, if I understand what you're saying, you sent Sterling Green just the 2 pages of the text of the report itself without any attachments. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, so is there an email that contains that 2-page report?
That was sent to their attorney, and I assumed that the attorney shared that with them, but that was not the case.
And when in here was the, I'm sorry, is the email sending the 2-page report to the attorney in here?
Yes, it is.
And what page is that?
Let me go back to it, sorry. That's gonna be page 12.
So you sent it to Mr. Connery on January 10, 2020.
Yes, that's correct.
When were you first contacted and requested to perform an audit and prepare a report by Sterling Green?
That would have been in April of 2019.
And were you first contacted by telephone or email?
By telephone.
And who contacted you?
That would be Gloria Cox.
And who was Gloria Cox?
She is a client that I do work for.
And what was her relationship with Sterling Green?
She was a board member, I believe, at one point.
And what did she ask you to do?
Basically, she just said that Sterling Green needed some accounting work done, and she thought that I could help them out as far as, getting everything together for them, because all of their financial records and whatnot were in disarray. There was no financials or anything to be looked at. It was just in a bad situation.
Are you aware that Gloria Cox resigned from the Sterling Green board in July of 18?
No, I mean, I knew that she was no longer on the board, but I didn't know the exact date that she resigned now.
Did you and Gloria Cox exchange emails?
No.
How how many times did you communicate with Gloria Cox regarding the preparation of this report and the audit?
Just the initial phone call, and that was it.
And did Ms. Cox ever send you any records?
No.
When did you next communicate with Sterling Green personnel?
I guess about a week after talking to Ms. Cox, I came out to meet with them.
And who did you meet with?
I met with Sharon, Provost, and like 2 other members of the board.
Do you recall their names?
One was Anthony, and then the other one was a police officer. I can't recall his name at this point.
And what occurred at that meeting?
Basically, we talked about what had transpired at Sterling Green, as none of the records being able to be accessed, the office being broken into, and that they needed an audit done, as well as they needed financial work as well.
What's the difference between financial work and an audit?
Basically, in order to do an audit, you have to have a backbone, meaning the bank statements and things like that to review, and there was none of that present at the time.
And what did they tell you had transpired at Sterling Green?
Basically, they told me that Mr. Olson kind of came in and took over and became the president or something, and made some unauthorized transactions and basically misappropriated a lot of funds.
Did you take any notes at that meeting?
I did not. I took the notes that were given to me by Sterling Green.
Do you still have those notes?
I have sent those to you.
Okay. I believe I sent this email to this document, this 4-page PDF to U.S. Legal. Does the court reporter have a 4-page PDF exhibit?
I believe so.
The words "cash taken by Tom Olson" are at the top of the first page. I'm hoping we can have that identified as Williams Exhibit 1.
The 4-page document I have is titled Transaction Detail by Account.
Mr. Williams, do you have access to this document?
Yes, I should. Yes, sir.
Could you take a look at it?
Okay. Okay, I'm looking at it now.
Okay. So bear with me. Because we don't have this as an exhibit, I'm going to read it. And I'm going to ask you to confirm I'm reading it accuracy.
Okay.
Reading it accurately. The document begins with the words, "Cash taken by Tom Olson from the homeowner's bank account without any authorization from the board of directors." Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
The cash that has been withdrawal by Tom Olson from April to July 2018. Tom is the only one that has tampered with the account since April and the only one that had an active debit card. April, from account ending in 7394, April 16, $2,000, withdrawal made in a branch. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
April, from account ending in 0290, April 4, 2018, $1,000, withdrawal made in branch. April 30, 2018, $2,000, withdrawal made in branch. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
May, from account ending in 0290, May 22nd, 2018, $2,000, withdrawal made in a branch with the card ending in 9411. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
June, from account ending in 0290, June 19, 2018, $5,000, withdrawal made in a branch. July, from account ending in 0290, July 17, 2018, $47,773.29, withdrawal made in a branch from April to July 2018. Total cash withdrawal, $57,773.29. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct.
Were you given any information as to the purposes to which Mr. Olson devoted these funds?
No. The only funds that were, I guess, correct was the withdrawal on July 17th, 2018 for $47,000 was related to payroll.
I'm sorry, I have to object as non-responsive. My question is, do you have any information as to the purposes toward which Mr. Olson devoted these funds?
I do not.
Did you take any steps to verify that Mr. Olson had in fact made these withdrawals as opposed to another person making these withdrawals?
Yes. At the time when I was at the Sterling Green office, they had copies of the actual bank withdrawal slips with his signature on it.
And did you take those with you and add them to your file?
I did not.
Did you contact Mr. Olson to confirm that the signature was his and that he made the withdrawals?
I did not.
And then it looks like there's some handwriting at the bottom.
Yes.
Is that your handwriting or someone else's?
That is my handwriting.
And with regard to the typewritten section at the top of the page, who prepared that? Who typed up that document?
I'm not exactly sure who typed it up, but it was presented to me when I met with Sterling Green. I don't know who typed it up.
Who's the person who gave you that document?
That would be Sharon Provost.
Okay. And then what did you write here at the bottom?
That's just in reference to when I actually looked at the paycheck records through ADP. I just made notes of who the paychecks were actually sent out to.
Were the paychecks sent to Sterling Green employees?
Yes.
Is the $47,773.29 withdrawal, if I'm reading your notes correctly, are your notes indicating that sum was devoted to payroll for Sterling Green employees?
All of it was paychecks.
For Sterling Green employees?
Correct.
And then this next part of the document, the last 3 pages of this 4-page PDF. I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to read it and ask you to confirm that I'm reading it accurately so that we have a description for the record so people can track down this document later.
Okay.
The last 3 pages of this PDF, at the top of the first of the 3 pages, it says Sterling Green Transaction Report, January to July 2018. Did I read
Yes.
that correctly?
Yes.
And then it lists a series of transactions extending from April 4 of 18 to July 31 of 18. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the transactions total $29,099.29. Is that correct?
Correct.
And am I correct that this lists a series of transactions by date and by amount? And for most of them, with one exception, they appear to all have been checks. Is that correct?
No, most of them are electronic fund transfers.
Okay, I guess I'm just going from the word, the first
Right,
word.
right. Yes, sir.
Are you saying they're withdrawals?
In the description, if it says withdrawal, it was an electronic funds transfer. If it has a description such as a vendor, that means that yes, a card was used for that via online or in person. I'm not sure.
Do you know who created this document?
Repeat the question one more time.
Do you know who created this document?
I created this document.
And how did you create this document?
Using my accounting software, QuickBooks.
And you've indicated each of these charges were an unauthorized expense. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And who provided you with the information that led you to label each of these charges as unauthorized?
That would be the board members, but yeah, the board members at Sterling Green, because I went through the transactions with Ms. Provost, and I cannot remember the other lady's name. I'm so sorry, but I went through the transactions with Sterling Green. And
who is the person affiliated with Sterling Green that informed you that each of these transactions were unauthorized?
That would be Sharon Provost for the majority of it, yes.
And was the other person a man or a woman?
A woman.
Black or white?
White.
Understand.
White.
And do you know do you have any information as to the purpose of these transactions listed in this document?
I do not have any information besides what was shared with me, but I will say that these particular transactions, you know, they just started showing up, and then of course they went away.
And
so they kind of stuck out as I was doing my my exam of the financials and whatnot. These transactions did stick out, and I had them verified.
Why did they stick out?
Because prior to April, there weren't any cash withdrawals made. There wasn't a debit card to be swiped, and there were never any Wingstop, Specs, you know, GoDaddy, Good Company Catering, things of that nature never had transpired before.
Okay. Did you look at, were you given any financial or bank records by Sterling Green for 2017 at any point?
No.
Okay. So my question is, with regard to the transactions listed in this transaction report, do you have any information as to whether these transactions went for Sterling Green's purposes or benefit as opposed to some individuals' purposes or benefit?
No.
Okay. Did, when you met with Ms. Provost and the board member, was this was also in April of 2019?
I mean, we met more than one time, but yes, that's the first time we met, yes.
And at this first meeting, did Sharon Provost was there, but you don't recall the other person who was there. Is that correct?
Anthony was there.
Okay. Did either Anthony or Ms. Provost inform you at this first meeting in April 2019 that Sterling Green was involved in litigation with Mr. Olson?
They did, yes.
Okay. Did they provide you with any more information beyond what Ms. Cox said as far as why they wanted a audit report prepared?
No, that was really it. They just needed it due to there being some misappropriated funds in 2018.
Who was the person that told you that Sterling Green was involved in litigation with Olson? Was it Provost or Taft?
It would be Ms. Provost.
What did she say about the litigation?
Now this is this is over a year and a half ago, so I'm trying to recollect everything that was told to me. But basically, she just said that there was ongoing litigation between Sterling Green and Mr. Olson because he took over the board as the president and signed himself onto the bank account and then made purchases and transactions that was not authorized. And basically he was put out of the, I guess, kicked out of the board, you would say.
How many times did you meet with anyone from Sterling Green?
Once again, that's a tough question to answer, but I can ballpark it, I guess, maybe 5 times.
Did any of those meetings occur after July 1 of 19?
Yes.
Can you tell me about those meetings?
Those meetings were basically to get ready for the Homeowners Association annual meeting. And that's when I shared the auditor report review.
You shared the report at the HOA meeting or at the meeting with your meeting with Sterling Green personnel?
It's all in the same breath. Yes.
You know, in the month and year of that meeting?
That would have been the early part of August of 2019.
Were homeowners present at this meeting?
Yes.
I'm curious about something. At the end of your report, where you signed the report, you included the name Shedrick McGill CPA.
Yes.
Why did you include that in your report of Shedrick McGill CPA? The firm had no involvement in the preparation of the report of the audit.
Because upon my initial meeting, I let them know that I can, you know, with my credentials, that I work for a CPA firm as well. So I can, you know, so I can do the work that needs to be done. I have experience doing it. And I let them know that up front.
Does Mr. McGill still work as a CPA?
Yes.
Did anyone at all other than you have any role in the in the performance of the audit or the preparation of the audit report?
No.
I suspect this has something to do with the pandemic, but were you aware that that firm's its accounting license expired in March of 20?
No, I was not aware of that.
In the course of the preparation of your report, did Sterling Green provide you with any operating budgets?
No.
Did it provide you with any balance sheets?
No.
Did it provide you with any documents reflecting capital expenditures?
No.
Did it provide you with any documents reflecting reserves for capital expenditures?
No.
Did it provide you with any articles of incorporation?
Articles of incorporation. I believe I did see those documents. Yes.
How did you see them?
They were in a box in the when I came into my initial meeting with Sterling Green, everything was kind of in disarray as far as getting financials or old records and things like that. It was just found in a box.
Were the articles of incorporation, were any provisions of the articles of any significance to you in performing your audit or preparing your report?
No.
Were you provided with a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions in the course of performing the audit and preparing the report?
No.
Were you provided with any account records for individual owners or members in the course of performing the audit or preparing your report?
No.
Were you provided with any contracts to which Sterling Green was a party in the course of preparing your report or performing the audit?
No.
Were you provided with any minutes of meetings of owners by Sterling Green?
No, I was not.
Were you provided with any minutes of meetings of the board of directors?
No.
Were you provided with any tax returns by Sterling Green?
A 2017 tax return, yes.
I I don't recall seeing a tax return in the materials you forwarded to me. Did you have that tax return? Do you have it in your files?
I believe I have a copy of it. Yes, sir.
Were you provided with any records pertaining to any other audits performed by Sterling Green?
No,
Did you interview any persons in connection with the preparation of the independent audit report for Sterling Green?
the only person that I quote unquote interviewed would have been Ms. Provost and Mr. Anthony, but it was kind of like a group meeting where we just kind of sat down and, you know, went over things.
Did you ask them to provide contact information so you could interview Mr. Olson?
No.
I'd like to ask you about your resume, but we've been going for about an hour. I thought we might take a 5-minute break if everybody's agreeable. Is that okay with everybody?
Okay. Okay.
Off the record at 2:05. We are back on the record at 2:31.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, did you speak on the phone with Sharon Provost during the break?
No.
Were you aware that Gloria Cox had a Sterling Green debit card during the spring of 2018?
No.
When you spoke with Gloria Cox on the occasion in which she asked you to do some work for Sterling Green in April of 2019, did she make any comments to you regarding Tom Olson?
Only thing she said was that there were being some cash withdrawals made and she doesn't like to do business that way.
Did she say anything else?
No.
Did Sterling Green at any point give you any data from its TOPS database?
No.
Did Sterling Green ever give you a spreadsheet created by Tom Olson that listed the payment of Sterling Green expenses?
No.
Did Sterling Green ever give you a scanned repository that was created by Tom Olson?
A scanned what now?
Repository?
No.
Were you aware that Sterling Green maintained 2 sets of books, one in Excel and one in TOPS format?
I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that Sterling Green had 2 methods for handing out receipts, TOPS and a handwritten receipt book?
Yes.
Did you see both of those?
I saw the receipt book and I was aware of the top software, yes.
Were you aware that in 2018, Thomas Olson terminated or attempted to terminate Sharon Provost?
No.
I believe the court reporter has the CV of the witness. I'm hoping. Thank you. We'll call this Williams Deposition Exhibit 1.
Okay.
Is this CV up to date?
Yes, except for the address.
Oh, now you're on Old Richmond Road.
That's correct.
Okay. Your resume indicates you have extensive training and experience in nonprofit and for-profit accounting with a principal focus on taxation. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
What's your experience in nonprofit accounting?
I was the bookkeeper for CSTEM, which is a nonprofit located here in Houston.
And what sort of business is what sort of nonprofit is CSTEM?
CSTEM is a nonprofit that works with the education system for young students and things like that with STEM projects, and they bring in donations and different things of that nature.
What else does your nonprofit accounting experience involve?
Also, I do say that I did do that for about 5 years, well, on and off for about 5 years. And then also, I have another client, well, I had another client, I'm drawing a blank here, you guys got me on the spot. Building and Restoring Hope. Yes.
And what did you do for Building and Restoring Hope?
I kept their books as well and prepared their taxes as well.
When you say did their taxes, you mean prepared their tax return?
Yes.
What kind of entity is Building and Restoring Hope?
It's a 990.
I'm sorry?
When you say what type of entity, what do you mean? Like, are they incorporated?
No, what I mean is, what do they actually do?
Oh, they it's more or less an adult daycare.
And did you yourself ever do an audit of either CSTEM or Building and Restoring Hope?
No.
And have you been a senior accountant with Shedrick McGill since '06?
No, I have not. That's when I started my I guess that's when I graduated from college.
Okay. So you joined Shedrick McGill in 2006, and at some point after that, you were promoted to the position of senior accountant. Is that right?
That's correct.
And when were you promoted to the position of senior accountant?
This was maybe 2-3 years ago. And it should say senior staff accountant.
So your actual job title at present is senior staff accountant.
Correct.
And that's been your job title for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
What can a certified public accountant do that a senior staff accountant cannot?
I know there's certain documents that they can't sign off on. I mean, that a CPA can sign off on that a staff accountant cannot.
Is an audit one of them?
That I'm not sure of. I just know in the past there have been requests that they needed a CPA signature on certain bank documents that are requested from the bank and things of that nature.
And then your CV says you're responsible for the preparation of over 600 tax returns annually. Is that true?
Yes.
Would you say that most of your work involves the preparation of tax returns?
No, I would not.
What percentage of your work involves the preparation of tax returns?
Maybe about 40 to 50. It's really split in half, 49 to 51%.
So 50% is preparing tax returns and 50% is bookkeeping?
Correct. We have a busy season, and then things, of course, taper off.
And then at present, I assume then it would be accurate to say, at present, your work does not involve the performance of audits and preparation of audit reports at all.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
At this current time, it does not.
Am I correct that you have performed no audits since the Sterling Green audit?
That's correct.
And then your CV also indicates that since 2016, you've performed tax accountant bookkeeping services on your own and not as an employee of Shedrick McGill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to those tax accountant bookkeeping services you provide on your own separately from Shedrick McGill, it indicates you prepare quarterly tax reports encompassing 941 tax calculations, state unemployment tax reports, and federal unemployment tax liability calculations, correct?
Correct.
And just to beat a dead horse, your CV is accurate.
Yes.
Okay. And then you sent your CV to Sterling Green's attorneys in January of 2020 because they needed it in connection with this litigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then a document produced in discovery by Sterling Green appears to be a 2006 bachelor's degree in business administration from Prairie View A&M University. It's your degree, correct?
Correct.
And then in 2016, you received a Master of Science in Accounting from Keller Graduate School of Management. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have any plans to take the Certified Public Accountant exam?
It's definitely in the works, yes, sir.
But you have not taken it before, or have you?
No, I have not. I have studied for it, but I have never taken it, no.
Have you ever spoken to an attorney representing Sterling Green?
Excuse me?
Have you ever spoken to an attorney representing Sterling Green?
Yes.
What was the name of the attorney?
That would be Chris Conroy.
And on how many occasions did you speak with him?
It would have been a one time.
Did Mr. Conroy inform you that he wanted you to serve as an expert witness for Sterling Green?
I did not know at the time, but I assumed that would be the outcome.
How many times did you speak with Mr. Conroy?
I spoke with him one time.
What was the substance of the conversation?
We had he had a meeting at Sterling Green, and he was there. Basically, I was there when he was there. We had a meeting at Sterling Green.
Oh, you met in person.
Yes.
What did you discuss at the meeting?
We discussed the various charges that we were detailed on, and we discussed the payroll situation that was ongoing as well.
What do you mean by charges?
The debit card charges and the withdrawals from the bank and the things like that.
And what did you say to him regarding the charges and withdrawals?
I just shared with him the same report that you saw.
Did he ask you any questions about the report?
Not that I recall, no.
All right, let's take a look at your report. And there is a 53-page PDF that we sent to the court reporter or U.S. Legal that we'd like to have identified as Williams Exhibit 2. Do you see it? I'm addressing the court reporter now. Do you see a 53-page PDF?
No, I do not. Unless it's contained within this really large one that's labeled Joshua Williams Depot Exhibits, but that's like 315 pages.
Is it possible for me to email it to you now?
Sure. I put my email in the chat.
Mr. Williams, do you have that 53-page PDF?
Is it something that I sent you that's 53 pages?
It's your report and attachments. So it's like you're reporting the exhibits. Kathleen, I just sent it to you. I'm not sure it went through.
Oh, it's the report that says with attachments?
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. Okay, I have it up.
Have you received it yet, Kathleen?
Repeat one more time, sir.
Yes, I received it. It's downloading right now.
Okay. Yeah, this is much better than in-person depositions. I'll be right back. Looks like we're in business. Okay. Mr. Williams,
Yes.
has the court reporter marked this as what? Williams Deposition Exhibit 2?
Correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Williams, can you take a moment and review Deposition Exhibit 2?
Okay.
And I think you can actually, if you go to View Options, you can request remote control, and that way you can scroll down the document.
You said view options.
Yeah, you go to View Options, and then hit request remote control.
Okay. I think I'm in control of it.
Can we get the photos up on top? The photos might be blocking him from scrolling down. Let me know when you've had a chance. I'm not asking you to read it all. I'm just asking you to go through it and make sure it's complete.
Okay. Okay, so it seems to all be here.
Okay. So Exhibit B is 53 pages, correct? Or Exhibit 2?
Yes, 53 pages.
And it looks like your report is actually just the first 2 pages and the rest of it are exhibits or attachments, correct?
Correct.
When you sent Sterling Green the report, did you send it the report in its entirety?
When I sent them the report,
Yeah.
no, I just sent them the first couple of pages, the summary, pretty much, initially.
And I have to tell you, I'm still a little bit unclear on when you first sent him the report, the first 2 pages.
I sent the first report to the attorney via email.
Okay.
Because as I said, I didn't realize that I hadn't sent them the entire package. And once I realized that, I put it all together and sent it to them in January.
At any point after that, did you send it to Sterling Green?
No.
Now, I understand you sent the final report to the attorney only. Did you send any drafts of the report to Sterling Green?
No.
Did you discuss or your report or read it to anyone at Sterling Green over the phone?
I discussed it over the phone, but I did not read it, no.
Who did you discuss it with?
I discussed it with Ms. Provost and Mr. Anthony.
And by Mr. Anthony, you mean Mr. Tapp?
Yes.
And did they request any changes?
No.
Okay, going to page 1 of the report. Let's see. I'm going to the bottom of the first page under the heading basis for adverse opinion. We believe, I'm going to read a portion of it and ask you to confirm I read it correctly. quote, "We believe the company's financial statements are misrepresented, misstated, and do not accurately reflect its financial performance and health." Did I read that correctly?
Yes,
Did you write that?
yes.
What does that mean?
It just means that based on 2018's information, I can't give a pass, a good opinion on it, because so much has happened in 2018 that makes the financials not accurate.
What happened?
Funds were misappropriated, payroll was overstated. Of course, there's been numerous expenses spent out to different lawyers and controllers and things of that nature that don't happen in a typical year.
I think you made a presentation of the report at the Board of Directors meeting in August 2018, correct?
Correct.
Did you distribute copies of the report to the members of the Board of Directors at that time?
Yes.
When you say the company's financial statements are misrepresented, are you suggesting they were misrepresented by any particular individual?
No.
And how are they misrepresented?
As I repeated earlier, there are expenses. There are expenses that could be not legitimate expenses and legitimate transactions that occurred during 2018.
And I think we've covered this before, but am I correct that at no point did you review Sterling Green financial records for any year prior to 2018?
That's correct. I was not given that information. They didn't have access to it.
Did you ask for it?
I did.
What do you mean when you say they didn't have access to it?
As far as I know, records were possibly destroyed. And the top software, there's a second software that Mr. Olson has or something to that effect, but they weren't able to provide me with any prior information.
And who told you they couldn't provide you with information for years prior to 2018?
That would be Ms. Provost.
And then under adverse, where it says, quote, "In our opinion, due to the significance of the matter discussed and the basis for adverse opinion," paragraph, "the financial statements referred to previously are not presented fairly in all material respects. The financial position of Sterling Green Community Improvement Association as of December 31, 2018, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America." Did I read that accurately?
Yes.
What does that sentence mean?
It just simply means that the financials can't be relied upon as completely accurate in telling the financial position of Sterling Green for 2018.
And what financial statements are you referring to in this sentence?
The additional attached documents.
So all of the financial statements referenced in that paragraph are included in the 53-page PDF that is Williams Exhibit 2.
Correct.
When you use the term I have to back up for a second to the basis for adverse opinion paragraph. When you
Okay.
say potential misappropriation, what do you mean by that?
Can I see the page? I can't see it right now.
Sure, are you able to scroll up? I think if you go over to this thing on the, yeah, there you go. It would be at the bottom of page 1.
Okay. Okay, now repeat the question.
When you use the phrase potential misappropriation in the basis for adverse opinion paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
are you referring to the purchases and cash withdrawals that you addressed earlier that you were told were not authorized?
That and the payroll transaction, yes.
And the payroll transactions, the problem with those, in your view, is that you were told those were also unauthorized.
Correct.
Okay. And am I correct that you're not asserting anything about the purposes other than the payroll, about the funds, about the purposes to which the funds were devoted, i.e. somebody pocketing the funds or devoting them to their own use?
No.
So is my statement correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you say without authority, what you mean by that is it's your understanding based upon what Ms. Provost told you that those expenditures were not approved by the board of directors.
Correct.
Okay. And then the phrase, still in the basis for adverse opinion paragraph, actually strike that. I'm going to ask you something else. The documents that are attached to this report,
Yes.
in other words, all the pages in this PDF, this exhibit, other than the first 2 pages, are those documents that you created or that somebody else created?
That I created.
And then after you say not approved by members of the board, you have a phrase, quote, due to a lack of sufficient internal controls, unquote. What do you mean by that phrase?
Just usually in my my experience, whenever certain transactions happen, usually over $500, it usually requires 2 signatures or something to that effect, so that things don't get misappropriated, or it has to be signed off on by at least 2 people. and that wasn't taking place.
And then at the end of that paragraph, you say, quote, resulting in significant losses on the income statement and a severe depletion of assets, parentheses, cash, close parentheses, on the balance sheet for the period ending December 31, 2018. What is the amount of the significant losses on the income statement?
I think I referred to them on the actual financial document.
Well, feel free to review those or consult those. I'm just wondering what that number is.
Okay. And actually, it's on the second page where I referred to possible, funds that were depleted.
Okay. So what is the amount of the significant losses on the income statement?
The $248,833.
And 60 cents.
Yes.
Can you point out this income statement for me among the documents that are attached?
Yep. I can do that. Okay, this is the income statement here.
So it looks like it's page 7 of the 53-page PDF. Is that right?
That's right.
And that document is entitled
Profit and loss.
Sterling Green CIA Profit and Loss January-December 2018.
Yes.
Okay. And in under adverse opinion, you use the phrase "in our opinion."
Yes.
Why are you using the word "our"?
It's just force of habit in the accounting world. I always put we, our.
Okay, but in fact, what it should really say is, in my opinion, correct?
Correct.
Because you're the only one who worked on this, who participated in the audit or the preparation of the report.
Correct.
No one else even reviewed it.
No.
Let me rephrase it just so we're clear. Am I correct that no other financial professional, CPA, bookkeeper, accountant reviewed your report of audit of Sterling Green?
No.
Is my statement correct that no one else in the financial field reviewed it?
Yes.
Okay. What accounting principles are you referring to in the adverse opinion paragraph?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
You use the phrase accounting principles in the last line of the adverse opinion paragraph. What accounting principles are you referring to?
That's the standard accounting principles.
Of any particular entity?
Just United States.
Okay. That's an entity. So moving on to key audit matters.
Mhm.
I'm going to read the first sentence there, and I want you to tell me if I've read it accurately. Account balances totaled approximately $894,410.34 in April of 2018. By July 2018, accounts totaled approximately $649,576.74, a decrease of $248,833.60, resulting in those bank accounts being closed. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that that a bank closed those accounts because of a decrease in the balance of the account balances?
No.
Well, why do you use the word resulting?
Because the bank accounts were closed so that Mr. Olson no longer had access to them.
Okay. And were they closed by Sterling Green?
Yes. That's why they had multiple bank accounts in 2018, I believe.
And do you recall the banks that Sterling Green had accounts with during this April to July 18 period?
It was Wells Fargo, and then they moved over to a smaller bank. It's in the PDFs that I sent you, the name of the banks.
Is it Independent Bank?
Independent Bank, yes.
Is there a document that's attached to this report that establishes that the balance of the account was reduced by $248,833.60 from April to July of 18?
No, there's not a document in the attachment that shows that. That would be something that you would see by reviewing the actual bank statements.
Did you review the actual bank statements?
Yes.
Are they in the documents that you sent me and then I forwarded to plaintiff's counsel over the past couple of days?
Correct.
Do you know how much Sterling Green collects in assessments from homeowners each year?
I know it's close to $1 million.
Do you know how many times each year, and am I correct that it collects that money mainly in the form of assessments?
Correct.
And do you know how often Sterling Green collects and assessments each year?
I'm not for sure on that question.
I'll represent to you that they collect them during January each year. And if that is true, would it make sense for the bank accounts of Sterling Green, for the balances of those accounts to steadily drop throughout the year due to expenditures?
Yes, and I considered that as well.
Okay. I'll represent to you that there are 2,237 homes in Sterling Green, and that the annual assessment in 18 was $280, so that approximately $626,360 would have been collected in assessments that year, not $1 million or close to $1 million. Do you have any reason to dispute what I've said?
Only thing I can think of is, of course, people are not paying on time, and there's back pay and from prior years and things of that nature.
Do you have any reason to dispute the number it gave you as far as the number of homes in Sterling Green?
No,
Do you have any reason to dispute the number I gave you as far as the annual assessment at Sterling Green?
no.
Okay. Do you hold the opinion that the decrease in the Sterling Green account balances of $248,833.60 resulted entirely or in part from wrongdoing on the part of Tom Olson?
I don't like to use singled out names, but during that time frame, the account dwindled pretty drastically.
I have to object as non-responsive. What I'm asking you is if you're alleging that that decrease resulted entirely from wrongdoing on the part of Mr. Olson.
Not entirely, but for the most part, yes.
And did the wrongdoing involve anything more than expenditures that were made without authority?
To my knowledge, are we talking about financially, or are we saying word of mouth, or what do you mean? Because I'm just strictly looking at the numbers.
Well, you're giving me an opinion, and I'm just trying to figure out what the basis for the opinion is. So it seems like so far the focus has been on a lack of authority. And my question to you is, you've said that that decrease resulted at least in part from wrongdoing on the part of Mr. Olson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And does that wrongdoing involve a lack of authority on his part? In other words, he didn't have authority to make those withdrawals.
Correct.
Do you have any idea what Mr. Olson did with either the withdrawals that he made? Well, let me start over. Do you have any idea what Mr. Olson did with the money that he withdrew from Wells Fargo during the April to July 18 period?
I have no idea.
Okay. And what is the basis for your opinion that most, if not all, of the decrease of $248,833.60 resulted from wrongdoing on the part of Mr. Olson?
It's just due to the various withdrawals and charges that were unauthorized, the payroll, which is totaled out to about 70,000. I can't remember the exact number. And then, of course, all the legal fees and professional fees that had to be paid out
You hold
in reference to the litigation.
any other bases for that opinion?
No.
Do you have any opinion as to how Mr. Olson, or whether Mr. Olson caused Sterling Green to incur legal fees?
Yeah, I believe that due to the activities that were going on, a lawsuit was filed and litigation began, and numerous people had to be paid, including a controller.
I have to object as non-responsive. My question is, how did you hold the opinion that Mr. Olson caused lawsuits to be filed? How did he cause the lawsuits to be filed?
By doing unauthorized transactions with Sterling Green's bank accounts.
Have you read the petitions in any of those lawsuits?
I have not. That wasn't the scope of my my work.
Right.
I tried to stay as neutral, but I don't know anything about that.
Does the decrease of $248,833.60 also involve legitimate Sterling Green expenditures?
It's possible.
You don't know one way or the other?
No, what I'm saying is that it does involve some expenses that were actually expenses of Sterling Greens.
How many employees does Sterling Green, let me rephrase that. How many employees did Sterling Green have during the period of April to July 2018?
Once again, I'm not looking at the payroll summaries, so I can't really answer that question, but I think it was around, I can give you a guesstimate around 5.
And would I be correct that Sterling Green would be paying its employees from its bank accounts?
Correct.
So some of this sum, $248,833.60, went to the payment of employees, correct?
Correct.
Do you know how much of that went to the payment of employees?
No, I can't quantify that number. The only number I can quantify is the transaction that happened in July with the withdrawals to pay employees via cashier's checks.
And you're aware that Sterling Green also does business with vendors such as security companies, outdoor maintenance companies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you agree with me that their expenditures for those contractors would also come out of its bank accounts?
That's correct.
And so what would have contributed to this reduction by $248,000 approximately?
Repeat the question again.
Would you agree with me that the expenditures for contractors such as security and outdoor maintenance would also contribute to this decrease of approximately $248,000?
No, because that is a natural occurrence within the company.
What is?
Paying out the contractors such as security and maintenance.
So they wouldn't pay them from their bank accounts?
What I'm saying is that during the course of business with Sterling Green, that's their day-to-day operations. That's standard. That would happen any year.
Okay. I have to object as non-responsive. Let me try to come at this from another direction.
Okay.
If I understand this first paragraph correctly, you're asserting that the balance of Sterling Green's bank account decreased by about $248,000 from April to July 2018.
Yes.
And you've already agreed with me that some of that went to the amounts that they pay employees, and therefore is that correct?
That's correct.
And had Tom Olson never set foot on Sterling Green property, they would have had to pay the employees, correct?
I'm not sure what that question means.
Between April and July 2018, did Sterling Green pay its employees their normal salaries authorized by the board of directors out of the account balances that are referenced in this first sentence?
Correct.
Okay. By the way, I will represent to you that Sterling Green actually, in 2018, had approximately 14 employees, including 2 managers, 6 maintenance and law enforcement, 2 administrative assistants, and 4 lifeguards. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
If that's what the payroll records say, then that's what they say. Once again, that wasn't the scope of what I was looking to see how many employees they have.
And were you given information about the lawsuits by anyone?
No,
How did you learn about lawsuits if you were not given information about them by anyone?
I was told verbally during our first interaction. I wasn't given information. I was just told verbally.
Okay. And so who told you that verbally?
I already stated that Ms. Provost told me that.
Okay. And did she tell you that those lawsuits were in progress because of Mr. Olson's conduct?
Yes.
Okay. And then moving on to the second sentence. Quote, from April of 2018 through July 2018, an unauthorized debit card was activated that was used to purchase withdrawal money totaling approximately $29,099.29. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
I believe we already discussed these expenses, didn't we, earlier in the deposition?
We did.
And the debit card that you're referring to, what bank issued it?
Wells Fargo.
And you're characterizing those purchases with that debit card as unauthorized because Ms. Provost told you they were unauthorized. Is that correct?
In part, and that is partially true. It's honestly because there was no debit card prior to Mr. Olson gaining control of the account. And also the debit card was linked to the payroll account, not the operating account. So it just made the transactions even more, how do you say, noticeable, because they were coming out of the payroll account instead of the operating account. And there was never a debit card on either one of them until Mr. Olson gained control of the accounts.
So the fact that they struck you as unusual and the fact that Ms. Provost told you they were unauthorized, those are the bases for your conclusion that those purchases and withdrawals were unauthorized.
Objection form.
And based on the prior months and then the months after Mr. Olson left, as far as the transactions that transpired on Sterling Green's bank accounts.
Do you know who Dorothy MALVEAUX is?
Excuse me?
Do you know who Dorothy MALVEAUX is?
I've heard the name.
Were you aware that Ms. MALVEAUX had a credit card that was issued by Sterling Green?
No. No. Let me retract that. I'm sorry. I do recall there being a credit card, a separate credit card, but I didn't know that she had one. Because there was a Wells Fargo credit card as well.
When Ms. Provost told you that the transactions that totaled $29,099.29 were unauthorized, did you do anything to verify that?
My verification process was simply looking at the past months and looking at the months after Mr. Olson left and just comparing the data and seeing the flow of the transactions as far as there being a debit card linked to a payroll account.
You didn't attempt to interview anyone to verify her claim that they were unauthorized, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you You never asked for board meeting minutes in order to verify that they were unauthorized by the board, correct?
No, I did not.
So my statement's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Am I correct that there is nothing in the text of your report that indicates that the purchases and withdrawals that total $29,099.29 were made for the benefit of anyone other than Sterling Green?
I'm sorry, repeat the last part of the question, please.
Am I correct that there is nothing in the text of your report that suggests that those expenditures of $29,099.29 occurred for the benefit of anyone other than Sterling Green?
No.
We keep getting stuck when, well, is my statement correct?
The statement that you made, I'm trying to understand this long-winded, right? Give it to me one more time, sir.
I'll start over.
Yeah, one more time, sir.
Am I correct that there's nothing in your report indicating that any of the expenditures or withdrawals that totaled approximately $29,000 went for the benefit of anyone other than Sterling Green?
Objection form. You can answer the question if you can.
I can't answer that question.
What was done with the withdrawals that are described in that paragraph? What was done with the money?
I don't have an answer for that question either.
Okay. What was the items that were purchased, to what purpose were those items devoted?
They were unauthorized, so I'm not sure.
So, okay, so you don't know the purpose then, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I think I did put in the detail on that on some of the transactions, such as personal cell phones and things of that nature.
Is it possible to use a personal cell phone for Sterling Green business?
Of course it's possible, but it would need to be authorized.
What can it be for, well, let me put it this way. Do you live in an apartment or a house?
Apartment?
You have a car?
Yep.
Let's assume you leave your car outside tonight and I come over to your place and I wash it. Now, that would be for your benefit, even though you had not authorized it, correct?
Object to the form.
If something that crazy was to happen, I guess so, yes.
Okay. And then in the next paragraph, you say various payroll raises were given without permission, with the most alarming coming in the month of July, totaling $46,773.29 plus payroll taxes of $58.93.66. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
And when you say that they're without permission, what is the basis for the assertion that they are without permission?
Basically, in doing the reports, looking through the ADP payroll reports, various employees were given raises during that time frame, and then also, of course, the $70,000 payroll came up during that time as well.
I have to object as non-responsive because what I'm curious about is the without permission phrase. I just want to know what's the basis for the assertion that they were given without permission?
Because they were done independently of Sterling Green, meaning that there was no one that authorized those raises or the the payroll the large payroll that was paid out at the end.
And how did you learn that? Did you learn that from someone? And if so, who?
I learned that from going through the ADP records, and then I asked about those transactions.
Who did you ask about them?
I asked Ms. Provost about them.
And what did you ask her?
These are some pretty large checks that were written out. What's going on with this?
And what did she say?
And she told me that Mr. Olson had, I can't remember the exact words she said, but it was basically that he somehow got it to where they owed a couple of employees a ton of back pay. And that's pretty much the gist of it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a little much, as far as this $70,000 payroll. So that's how that conversation came up. And I think I sent you an attachment with that information too.
I have to reject non-responsive because I'm still at a loss as to the source of information for the phrase "without permission." Did someone tell you that he did not have authority to give those raises?
In the answer that I just gave you, sir, I said that I talked to Ms. Provost after I saw the transactions in the ADP payroll reports. And then when I saw them withdrawals on the bank statement.
And did she say that they were given without authority?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, when he objects to your answer to your question, that means he doesn't like it.
Actually, that's not what it means. It means I don't think that the question was answered, but we're making progress.
Understood.
And then the last one. Due to the nature of the above referenced items, Sterling Green also expensed out over $74,796.81 in legal professional fees from the period of April 2018 through December 2018. Did you review any bills submitted to Sterling Green by attorneys?
Did I review any of their bills?
Yes.
No. Only thing I reviewed were the actual payments.
Did you review any written descriptions of the litigation or the legal professional services? Let me rephrase this. Did you review any written descriptions of the legal professional services that were provided to Sterling Green during April to December 2018?
Only what was written in the memo section.
What memo section are you referring to?
When you write a check, and you can put what the check is for, like case number maybe, or whatever, what was being worked on at the time.
So how did $74,000 approximately in legal and professional fees result from the reduction in account balances, the unauthorized debit card use, and the unauthorized payroll raises?
Objection form of the question. You can answer it if you understand the multivariate question.
Repeat the question again.
Well, you've got the phrase here, due to the nature of, and that suggests to me that you're asserting that those legal and professional fees resulted from the other things that are described in the key audit matters. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I'm just trying to understand why you think those legal and professional fees resulted from the other activities listed in the key audit matters.
Because a lot of the fees, the legal and professional fees, came about because of the dealings with Mr. Olson. Even with the independent bank, I believe. And if you go through the financials, you'll see it. They had to pay a controller, I can't remember the word they used for it, like $15,000. And then the various meetings with the lawyers and paying his lawyer, I think, or I'm not sure, but I went through those and looked at the memo sections and allocated them.
I don't mean, are you talking about the receiver? They were paying a receiver?
There you go, the receiver. I'm sorry.
What did it say in the memo sections of these checks?
I don't have it in front of me, sir. And it's been a while.
Are there any other bases for the opinion that the legal and professional fees described in the key audit matters resulted from the other activities described in key audit matters?
No.
How many lawsuits was Sterling Green involved in 2018?
I have no idea.
How many lawyers did Sterling Green retain in 2018?
I'm not sure of that number either, but I know that it's more than one.
Do you know in 2017 whether Sterling Green was making payments to lawyers?
I do not know. I do not know that information.
The payroll raises addressed in that paragraph, by whom were the payroll raises given?
Once again, I would have to look at the reports, but the main name that jumps out to me was Safe is his name.
I'm not asking who they were given to, I'm asking who they were given by.
Who they were given by, I have no idea. Who the raises were given by?
Yes, you're saying that someone gave various payroll raises without permission. I'm wondering who gave them without permission.
Oh, I mean, I'm not sure. I know it wasn't anybody that was on the current board. I know that at the time. So I don't know. But nobody in that room said that they authorized any of those items. So I don't know.
Yeah, in your profession, are you subject to the jurisdiction of the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy?
Yes.
And then the report includes an address of 2601 Rosewood Street. Is that your former home residence?
No, that is the location of the CPA firm.
And did you sign the report?
Yes, sir.
Did anyone else sign it?
No.
And Shedrick Miguel CPA PC had no involvement in the audit or the preparation of the report, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever heard the term petty cash account?
Say it one more time.
Have you ever heard the term petty cash account?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Petty cash account usually is in my dealings is where small amounts of cash are kept on hand for different purchases that may come up during the business day. If we're saying a petty cash account.
Did you determine in the course of your review of Sterling Green records that Sterling Green maintained a petty cash account during 2018?
Yes.
Were you given petty cash account documents?
No.
Did you ask for any?
I did not, due to the amounts not being monetary.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Meaning there will be $40 or $50 in a petty cash.
Is there anything wrong with an HOA maintaining a petty cash account in your view?
No. But there should be a limit to the amount of the petty cash.
You know who Kathy Hairbottle is?
Yes. Well, I've heard her name and seen her name on different documents.
Were you aware that she was a bookkeeper with Sterling Green during 2018?
I did not know her role.
Did you at any point ask Sharon Post if you could interview or speak with Ms. Hairbottle?
I did not. There was nothing told to me about Ms. Hairbottle that would alert me to conduct any type of interview.
I'd like to take a five-minute break if that's all right with everybody.
That's fine as long as it's 5 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
Might be 4.
That's fine also.
Off the record at 3:52.
Is the court
We are
reporter?
back. You want me to go back on? We are back on the record at 3:57.
All right, I'm looking at now the first exhibit of your, or attachment of the report. It's statement of cash flows on page 3 of the PDF. Did you base your report in part on information contained in that document?
Yes,
And who created that document?
I did.
What did you do to verify the figures in the document?
To verify the figures, reconcile the bank statements.
Was money transferred from Wells Fargo? Let me rephrase that. Was Sterling Green money transferred from a Wells Fargo account to an independent bank account at some point?
Yes.
Do you know who the person was who arranged for that transfer?
That would have been Miss Provost, as far as I know.
Do you know if she had authority to do that?
I believe she did have authority to do it
And what's the basis for that belief?
because she was working with the board members.
Is working with the board members enough to bestow authority in that, like that, in that situation?
Objection form. You can answer to let you understand his question.
Ask the question one more time.
You, just so I understand correctly, you believe she had authority because she was working with board members.
Yes.
Would the board members have had authority to do that?
Yes. By a vote.
Did the board at one point have a vote and authorize Ms. Provost to do that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, moving on to the trial balance document that's on page 4 Did you base your report on information contained in that document?
Yes,
Who created it?
I did.
And when was it created?
It was created at various times through April through June of 2018.
And what's the source for the information?
Bank statements and canceled checks.
I'm curious about something. If you created this from April to July of 18, why is it entitled trial balances of December 31 of 18?
I meant 2019, I'm sorry. April through June of 2019.
And then the balance sheet is on page 6 of the PDF, is that correct?
I'm not looking at it, but yes, that would be correct.
Are you having trouble viewing it?
It's not on my, it doesn't look like it's on my screen right now. I mean, I can look at my PDF.
I think that's fine.
Okay, let me look at mine. Yes, that would be page 6.
And your report is based in part on information contained in this document?
Yes,
And you created this document?
that's correct.
And what information did you base, when you created this document, what information did you base it on?
It was based on the bank statements and also the 2017 tax return for the assets.
And then the profit and loss document that starts on page 7, you created this document as well?
Correct.
And I see it as total legal and professional services, and the amount is $82,699.45. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever see any documents that contained information as to the cost to Sterling Green of legal and professional services during the year 2017?
No.
And did you ever look at any document that had total salaries and wages, which are listed here for 2018? Did you ever look at any materials that told you what Sterling Green's total salaries and wages were for 2017?
The 2017 tax return had that information.
Have you produced the tax return as part of the materials you sent me?
No, I have not.
Can you send that to me?
I don't have it in PDF format.
What format do you have it in?
It's a paper format.
Is it,
I'd have to scan it.
is that something you can do?
At this point, I cannot.
I don't mean right now, I mean at some point.
Oh yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir,
Like in the next week?
yes, sir.
Were you aware that Sterling Green entered into a settlement with the Department of Labor in July of 2018?
Yes.
And who told you about that settlement?
Like I stated earlier, when I saw the payroll numbers come from the bank account and through ADP, I asked about that, and that's when she told me about the settlement.
Ms. Provost told you about it?
Yes, and provided me with the documentation on that.
Did she give you an opinion as to whether she thought the settlement was warranted or appropriate?
I don't think that she thought it was warranted or appropriate. No.
Did you attempt to make an independent determination as to whether the settlement was warranted or appropriate?
No.
Am I correct that at no point in your report do you comment on various expenditures year by year, like comparing wages expenditures for the April to July period in 18 to say the April July period in 16 or 17? Am I correct about that?
You are correct.
And then
I wasn't given access to any payroll summaries from 2017.
okay, did you ask for any?
It wasn't a question that really needed to be asked at the time.
So I'm correct, you did not ask.
Correct.
Okay, so, and then you created the profit and loss document.
Correct.
Okay, so the next document here, which will enable us to move faster, is the transaction detail by account is on pages 9 to 28 of this exhibit, correct?
Correct.
And you created this document as well.
Correct.
How did you create this document? On what type of software?
Repeat the last part. You said what type of software?
Yeah, did you use some software in creating this document?
Yes, this is Intuit QuickBooks.
There are some entries in this document that indicate that the expense was unauthorized. Am I correct about that?
Correct.
And we've already discussed the basis for your opinion that certain expenses were unauthorized, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, at 27 and 28,
You said page 27 and 28?
the bottom of 27, there's a heading unauthorized expense. And then it goes on to list expenses extending from April 4 of 18 to July 31 of 18, correct?
Correct.
And it's your understanding those expenses were not authorized by the board, correct?
Correct.
And you don't know the purpose of those withdrawals or purchases.
Correct. Yes.
What is Sharon Caldwell's job title with Sterling Green?
Office manager?
And do you know anything about her background, training, or qualifications?
No.
And then were you aware that, strike that, then the Sterling Green check detail extends from page 29 through page 53. Did you create that document?
Yes.
And what is the source for the information contained in the check detail?
It's going to be the various bank transactions and canceled checks.
Would you agree with me that at the time you prepared the audit report, conducting audits of HOAs and preparing reports of said audits was not an activity you regularly engaged in as part of your work, that it was something new and different?
Yes.
Have you ever served as an expert witness?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Have you ever served as an expert witness?
No.
Were you paid by Sterling Green for the report you prepared?
Yes.
And how much were you paid?
Total of $7,800, $650 per month.
What was your hourly rate at that time? Or did you not have an hourly rate?
There was no hourly rate.
Are you being paid for your attendance at this deposition today?
No.
Did you enter into a retainer agreement with Sterling Green?
No.
Do you know if Sharon Phobos was authorized to incur charges to make purchases and bank withdrawals on behalf of Sterling Green?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I know that just from the few times that I've been there with other members of the board and with herself, there's never been any issue with any financial transactions.
I notice your report is entitled an independent audit report. Why do you use the term independent in the title of the report?
Because I was the only one to work on the report.
In your industry, does the term independent as used like that, does that have special meaning?
I'm sorry, say again?
Does the use of the word independent in your business have special meaning as it's used here in the title of your report?
It does.
And what does that mean?
It just means that the audit was done independently from the business. Basically, it was done independently from the business, that no one inside of the business participated.
Do you think that's true of the audit that you performed?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the Auditing Standards Board of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of something called generally accepted auditing standards?
Yes.
Do you believe you are obligated to comply with generally accepted auditing standards in the course of performing an audit?
Yes.
Are you aware that to be in accordance with the generally accepted auditing standards, The auditor's report should include the manual or printed signature of the auditor's firm.
No, I thought that if I did the audit, then it just required my signature.
So if I understand correctly, are you saying that my description of what generally accepted accounting standards requires is inaccurate when I say that an auditor's report should include the manual or printed signature of the auditor's firm?
Objection form.
That's correct.
Okay. Have you ever reviewed the audit and attest standards of the Auditing Standards Board of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants?
I have, yes, sir.
Are you aware that section 700A, period 39 provides that, quote, the auditor's report should include the manual or printed signature of the auditor's firm?
Objection form.
No.
If I was to say that because you are neither a partner of Shedrick McGill CPA nor a certified public accountant, you do not have the appropriate qualifications or authority to control the quality of the audit engagement for Sterling Green or to sign the audit report that you prepared for Sterling Green, would you dispute that?
Objection form.
Based on my knowledge, I would dispute that.
Section 220.09 of the Audit and Attest Standards of the Audit Standards Board states that the person responsible for the audit engagement and report must be a firm partner or other person in the firm, and that said partner or person must have appropriate authority from a professional, legal, or regulatory body. Were you aware of that provision?
No.
Has any authority been bestowed upon you by a professional, legal, or regulatory body with regard to the preparation of audit reports?
Objection form.
What? I keep hearing like a different voice. Am I dealing with two people or three?
He's just making objections, and we're getting close to the end of this, so bear with us. Let me try it one more time. Has any authority been bestowed upon you by a professional, legal, or regulatory body with regard to the preparation of audit reports?
Objection form. And Mr. Williams, I am Bill Chesney. I represent the Homeowners Association. And I have to interject with objections. You can still answer the question to the extent you can. I have to put these into the deposition.
Okay.
And I am pictured up there, I don't know, somewhere on your computer.
Okay. So the answer to that question is no.
It's been suggested that instead of performing an independent analysis of the key audit matters identified in your report, you relied on representations made by Sterling Green personnel. Do you dispute that?
Objection form. Lack of foundation. Go ahead.
That question is a partial answer. I partly relied on information from Sterling Green, and I also relied on the information from the bank accounts and the canceled checks and the payroll summaries.
It's been suggested that you did not test or verify the information that you were given by Sterling Green. Do you dispute that?
Objection form. Don't know who's suggesting it. I don't. Objection form.
Okay, no answer to that.
I have to object as non-responsive.
Doesn't like
Did you verify the information you were given by Sterling Green?
Yes,
How did you verify it?
I verified it by reviewing the bank statements and the countless debit transactions and canceled checks.
It appears to me that your report only repeats the information that was provided to you regarding certain transactions and pay raises being unauthorized. Do you dispute that?
Objection form.
I do not.
Did you make any attempt to explore alternative reasons that might explain why Sterling Green's bank account balances decreased from April to July of 18?
Repeat the question.
Did you make any attempt to explore alternative reasons that might explain why Sterling Green's bank account balances decreased from April to July 2018?
Yes.
What were those attempts?
As we stated earlier, during that time, they don't receive a lot of HOA fees. So there wasn't as much money coming in, and there was a lot more money coming out during that time.
Would you agree that because you are not a CP, strike that? Were you sent any pleadings from this case?
Objection form.
Repeat the question.
Were you sent any pleadings from this case, such as a petition or an answer?
No.
Were you sent any discovery responses?
No.
Were you sent any expert reports?
No.
Did you review the plaintiff's expert designations listing you as an expert witness?
Yes.
Was Shedrick McGill even aware that you were performing this audit for Sterling Green?
Not while it was going on, no.
Has he learned of it since?
Yes.
Please tell me the circumstances under which he learned of it.
Objection form.
Basically was given a deposition to produce documents.
And he asked you about it.
Correct.
What did you tell him?
I told him that I did some work outside of the office for a client.
And what was his reaction, if any?
He just said, well, it needs to not have my name on it. That was it. It needs to not have the company's name on it.
And am I correct? Did he say why it needs to not have the company name on it?
Because he was not involved in it.
And am I correct that your report does have the company name on
It does, yes.
it? Do you have a personal relationship with anybody affiliated with Sterling Green?
No.
How long have you been doing work for Gloria Cox?
Since 2006.
How did you begin doing work for her in the first place?
She's a client of ours at the Shedrick McGill CPA firm.
Did you tell Mr. McGill that the work you were doing for Sterling Green was an audit?
I did. Yes, I told him it was an audit.
So first you worked for Ms. Cox in your capacity as a McGill employee, and later you did work for her in your capacity as an individual outside of the office.
No.
So is she still a client of McGill?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know one way or another if the payroll raises referenced in your report personally benefited Tom Olson?
No, sir.
Do you know if Olson personally profited or benefited from any of the transactions that are described in your report as unauthorized?
I can't truly say that. I'm not investigating, but if the transactions were unauthorized, then obviously he had some type of gain to it, I would assume.
That's just an assumption though, correct?
Correct.
And it's possible, as we discussed earlier, I can do something for your benefit that you do not authorize me to do, correct?
In the description that you gave me, yes.
And isn't it possible for, let's assume, for example, that Ms. Provost is authorized to make purchases of up to $500 without
Okay.
your approval, just for the sake of argument. And if tomorrow she went out and purchased a $2,000 security camera, that would be beyond her, for Sterling Green, that would be beyond her authority, would it not?
Objection.
Correct.
But it would also be for the benefit of Sterling Green, wouldn't it?
Correct.
You know if Mr. Olson benefited from the reduction in Sterling Green's bank account balance that's referenced in your report?
Objection form.
No, I don't know.
You know what attest services are?
What services?
Attest, A-T-T-E-S-T.
No.
Did you do any work for Sterling Green subsequent to preparing the independent audit report?
No.
There's a document produced by Sterling Green that lists payments to you at the end of several months in 2019. I'm going to try to send it. I just sent it to everybody, including the court reporter. It's Sterling Green documents 530 to 533. If it goes through, I'm hoping the court reporter can set it up as an exhibit. Before we get to that, I'm wondering if you had known that your supervisor, Mr. McGill, did not want the company name on the independent audit report you prepared for Sterling Green. If you knew that at the time you began your work for Sterling Green, would you have accepted the assignment?
Most likely not, no.
And what's the reason for that?
Just due to what we're going through right now.
Does it have something to do with your concern about whether you could actually, you're permitted by law to prepare an audit report without the involvement of a CPA firm?
No.
When you say what we're going through right now, what do you mean by that?
Being a witness in any type of lawsuit or anything like that.
Okay. What I'm getting at though is, I think you testified earlier that you put the firm name in it for a reason.
Yes, I put the firm name in it just so that they understood that I did have experience working with the CPA.
I think I already asked you this, but you haven't seen expert reports by any other, prepared by anybody in this case, correct?
Correct.
Did you investigate the petty cash expenditures?
I did not investigate them, no.
Were you aware that Independence Bank is the receiver's bank and not Sterling Green's bank?
I didn't understand the relationship to that fact. I didn't know if that meant that they owned, so that they owned Sterling Green's bank. I did not understand that.
Did you distribute your audit report to Sterling Green members as opposed to the board of directors?
No.
Do you know what a disclosure opinion is?
I'm sorry, you broke up. Say it again.
Do you know what a disclaimer opinion is?
Yes.
What is a disclaimer opinion?
In what context are we talking?
The preparation of an audit report.
The disclaimer opinion is basically letting the person or company that you're doing the audit for, whether you give them a good opinion or an adverse opinion, so that it basically, it's hard to explain, but it's an opinion that when given, if it is adverse or negative or good, it just looks good on the business's dealings. So that's why I had to give an adverse opinion, because things weren't correct.
Would you agree that the accuracy of your audit report is dependent on the accuracy of the information provided to you by Provost?
Objection
Yes.
form.
Yes.
All right, do we have this exhibit up yet? The disclaimer or the document I sent you that I'd like to have identified as an exhibit, it should say SG 530. Oh yeah, it's there. Mr. Williams, can you scroll down a bit? There are some entries that are highlighted here.
Wait. It says that I'm viewing the screen. Do I have control of it still? Okay, I see now.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have an entry here of June 30, 2019 for $1,950. Is that a payment? Does that reflect a payment to you by Sterling Green for the audit?
Correct.
And is it the same true of the second payment of the same date of $2,600?
Correct. And I use month end dates, but it just means that it was in June. So it was not the same day.
By the way, who prepared this document?
I prepared it.
So were you continuing to do, if you issued your audit report in June of 19, this report contains information that did not become available until after June of 19. Were you continuing to do work for Sterling Green after you issued the audit report?
Yes.
What work were you doing for Sterling Green after the audit report?
After the audit report, I pretty much took on as the bookkeeper on a month-to-month basis.
Are you still the bookkeeper for Sterling Green?
Not officially, no.
Are you unofficially the bookkeeper for Sterling Green?
Unofficially, yes.
Who's your boss? Let me rephrase that. Who's the person at Sterling Green who retained you as a bookkeeper?
That would be Ms. Provost.
Would you like to continue to work for Sterling Green in the future?
Objection form.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that one.
Do you intend to work for Sterling Green into the future?
Objection form.
You're Sterling Green's bookkeeper at present, correct?
Repeat again?
You're Sterling Green's bookkeeper at present?
Unofficially, yes. I do not have any, well, on a month-to-month basis. I need to, how do I word it? Ms. Provost is actually going to take over doing the bookkeeping.
So your relationship with Sterling Green, has she told you that?
Say again?
She told you that?
Yes.
When did she tell you that?
This was maybe late last year.
Did she tell you when she's going to take over?
No.
What is your rate as Sterling Green's bookkeeper?
$525 per month.
Were you Sterling Green's, when did you become Sterling Green's bookkeeper?
I said it's never been official, but it would have been sometime in September or so of 2019.
So in looking at SG 530, there's a July 31/19 entry for a payment to you of $3,150. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that for your work as the bookkeeper or for your work on the audit?
This is for the audit.
And then there's a second payment of July 31/19 for $485. Is that for your work as bookkeeper or as the auditor?
It was for neither. It was helping to put together a budget, I believe.
And then a budget for what?
For the year upcoming for Sterling Green, the expenses and income.
Okay. So then the next entry, there's it looks like a third payment on July 31 of $3,250. Am I correct?
That's correct.
And is that for audit work?
That's correct. It says in the memo, August through December 2018.
And then on August 7, there's a payment to you of $1,025. What was that for?
That That would have been for the bookkeeping work.
Were you getting paid for the bookkeeping work at the same time as the audit?
No,
Is it your testimony that the audit work concluded before the bookkeeping work began?
yes,
So then the August 28, 2019 payment of $900, by the way, did I read that correctly?
would have been, uh-huh,
Is that a yes?
yes,
Is that for bookkeeping work or audit work?
bookkeeping work,
And the payment of October 31, 19 for $525, is that for audit work?
bookkeeping work,
And the payment of November 30, 2019 for $262.50, is that for bookkeeping?
bookkeeping work,
And the payment of November 30, 2019, $262.50 was for legal and professional services work.
that's bookkeeping as well. The 262.50 and the 262.50 makes 525, I believe.
And then there was a payment to you on December 31 of 19 for tax preparation work of $17.50, correct?
Correct.
When did Ms. Provost offer you unofficial bookkeeping work for Sterling Green?
That would have been, I don't know, around July or so, August, we were talking about it.
July or August of 19?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Did she offer that verbally or in writing?
verbally.
I want to go back to that 19-page PDF. And has that been identified as an exhibit?
No.
Okay. Does the court reporter have that document?
Is it what's on the screen?
Yeah, that's it. Why don't we call that an exhibit? I don't know what we're on, maybe 3 or 4?
Or
Okay, exhibit. I don't know who's causing the echo, but I guess we'll just go forward and see what happens. There's a July 19, 2019 email on page 7.
Peter, that actually is me calling in because my computer's about ready to go out. So I have put it on mute. I've muted it.
Okay.
But that is me on a cell phone. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Did you write the email on page 7? That's, looks like it was sent on July 19, 2019 at 3:40 p.m.
Yes,
Am I correct that the subject line reads totals for attorney?
yes,
Why did you put that in the subject line?
because that's what she asked me for, the totals for the attorneys that were paid.
Were you aware at the time that Sterling Green was involved in litigation with Mr. Olson?
Yes,
In the body of the email, you say, please see attached reports. Feel free to back out any items not associated with Mr. Olson. Also add your totals $47,773.29 for payroll and $34,606.38 for payroll taxes. Did I read that correctly?
yes.
What does that sentence mean?
Objection form.
I'm not really sure. It was a while ago. I'm not really sure. But obviously she wanted to know how much expenses went towards Mr. Olson's litigation, I'm assuming.
And then on page 8, there's a July 19 email from Sharon Provost to you. Please tell me if I'm reading this correctly. I need a total amount with what we are charging Tom with. I need to know everything that he spent without authority and all the attorney fees, including the receiver's amounts, and give me one total amount. I have to get it to the attorney today. Did I read that correctly?
Yes,
Did you provide her with the information she requested?
yes.
Did you review any documents in preparation for the deposition?
Did I review it? I only reviewed what I sent to you. That's it.
Did you meet with anyone in order to prepare for the deposition?
No,
Did you speak with anyone by telephone in preparation for the deposition?
no,
Once you had received all materials from Sterling Green, did you feel that you had enough, that all materials that it sent you in connection with the audit, did you feel that you had enough materials to prepare an audit report?
yes,
At any point, did you request additional materials from Sterling Green?
no,
I'm looking at page 6 of this exhibit. Your report is dated June 26, 2019, correct?
correct.
Would it be accurate to say then that you last worked on the report on or before June 26, 2019?
Correct.
In this, please tell me if I'm reading this correctly. This is a June 26th email sent from Sharon Provost to you at 1:57 p.m. Hi Joshua, please see the attached documents per your request. Wells Fargo didn't give me any documents. If you have to have them to complete the audit, let me know and I will be back in the morning and help them print them out. Please contact me if you need anything else. Thank you for all your help. Did I read that correctly?
Yes,
And it's got 5 attachments. Is that correct?
yes,
So do I understand you reviewed those attachments and then completed the report on the same day?
correct.
And then didn't send the report to anyone for months?
No, well, I guess the way it worked out, yes, that's correct.
And
But I shared the information from the, I believe that I had sent it, but I did not. But I did share all the information with the members of the board.
as an accountant, what do you interpret the phrase Wells Fargo didn't give me any deposits to mean?
I'm thinking it just meant they didn't give her the images of the deposit slips.
Did you ultimately get any images of deposit slips?
I want to say that I did, but what I was able to do is to move forward because of the deposits were pretty much the standard. I just wanted to see the actual, but it ended up being the same information.
All right, now going to page 9. This is an August 11, 2019 email from you to Sharon Provost.
Mhm.
Am I correct?
Yes,
And you say, quote, "Good afternoon, I received your text today and would DEF like to reschedule for a day later this week to meet. Please see the attached notes from the board meeting with the additional notes numbers added, period, unquote." And it's a Word document, 2018 internal audit review.
okay.
Have you provided that Word document to me?
I did.
And what is this doc? What is, well, hold on, maybe I should email it to you. I'm gonna ask the court reporter to make that an exhibit. Did the court reporter receive the document?
It's received. I'm pulled up now.
Is this document basically a summary of the findings contained in your independent audit report?
That's correct.
And so the independent audit report existed at the time of this document?
Correct.
At the time this document was created?
Correct.
Why doesn't this document reference the internal audit report?
I have no idea. I didn't think that was necessary. I just put it together so that it could be presented at the homeowners association meeting.
And then on going back to the exhibit with, that's the 19-page PDF with the emails. On page 10, Sharon Provost is saying, in a September 24, 2019 email, Sharon Provost is saying, quote, please send me the full audit report as we discussed yesterday. I am in need of it pretty quickly. Thank you for your help, period, unquote. Is it your testimony that you never did send it to her?
I must have sent it to her at that time. I had to have if that's what the email says.
You have the email in which it was an attachment. Let me rephrase that. Do you have the email that included the independent audit report as an attachment that you sent to Sharon Provost in September 2019?
I do not.
Did you search your emails for that email?
Yes, sir, I did.
So you believe you sent the independent audit report, the final version of it, to Sharon Provost at some point, but you don't know when you sent it to her, is that right?
Correct.
And then looking at page 11 of this PDF, it's a January 8, 2020 email from attorney Chris Connery to you. Was Mr. Connery an attorney in this case for Sterling Green at some point?
Yes.
And he says in part, I need a copy of your current CV with CPA license info and a copy of all documents you received from SSG and reviewed for your audit report, unquote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And he also provides a draft or proposed description of your credentials as an expert witness. And in that description, he calls you, quote, auditor CPA for June 2019 audit, unquote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you responded in an email of the same day, that's also on page 11, where you said, quote, I do need to update the title to include the CPA firm I work for with Shedrick McGill CPA PC. Please see attached information. Also, Sharon has all the information I used to perform the audit, i.e. bank statements, canceled checks, payroll records, et cetera, period, unquote. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
So am I correct that when he for CPA license info, your response was to update the title to say that you work for Shedrick McGill CPA PC, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Section 901, period 456A of the Texas Occupations Code is entitled, quote, reports on financial statements, use of name or signature on certain documents, unquote. It provides the quote, only a license holder or a person who practices under a privilege under section 901.461 or 901.462 may issue a report on financial statement of another person or otherwise perform or offer to perform in a test service, period, unquote. Section 901.002 defines a test service as including an audit or other engagement required by the board to be performed in accordance with the auditing standards adopted by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants or another national accountancy organization recognized by the board, period, unquote. My question to you is this. Do you think that the independent audit report for Sterling Green you prepared comes within the scope of 901.456A and it constitutes a report on a financial statement of another or in a test service?
Oh my God, objection form.
I will say no,
Why not?
because I'm not a CPA.
So if the 456 states that only a license holder or a person who practices is under privilege under 461 or 462 may issue a report on a financial statement or perform an test service, you think you're not subject to that provision because you're not a CPA. Am I correct?
Objection form.
No, I am subject to that provision. I didn't understand the previous question.
Okay. You're not a CPA, correct?
Correct.
So again, my question is, do you think the independent audit report for Sterling Green you prepared comes within the scope of that provision, 901.456A, that says only a license holder and issue a report on a financial statement or perform an attest service.
Objection form.
No.
Why not?
I'm sorry, repeat the last question again.
Do you think the independent audit report you prepared for Sterling Green comes within the scope of 901.456A, which says that only a license holder or a person who practices under a privilege under sections 461 or 462 may issue a report on a financial statement of another person or otherwise perform or offer to perform an attest service?
Objection form.
And my answer to that question was no.
And my follow-up question was, why do you think your report does not come within the scope of that provision?
Based on what you have read to me, only a person that's licensed to do the work can actually do the work.
Did you do the work?
Yes.
Are you a license holder?
No.
If given the opportunity, would you withdraw your independent audit report?
If given the opportunity, yes,
Why would you withdraw it?
because apparently I was not qualified to do the audit report.
We will reserve the balance of our questions for trial.
I'll reserve my question until the time of trial.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Off the record at 5:13.